They tell you that being deeply caring is the ultimate good, that if you love with all your heart, give everything you have, and always stay gentle, the world will protect you, respect you, and give back in return. But Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, had a different view of caring people. He believed that the strong desire some individuals have to fix everyone, to take on their pain, and to disappear their own needs for others, that's not just a spiritual gift. He saw it as a survival pattern, learned from a childhood where their own feelings were too big, their needs too much, and their place in the family depended on serving others. But here's why Jung's ideas are so groundbreaking. He didn't see these deeply caring individuals as broken. He saw them as being halfway through a special journey he called individuation, a path towards becoming their full, complete self. Deep down, you likely already know this. You've always sensed that your ability to feel so much came with a hidden cost. Jung once wrote, "The greatest gift in life is to become your true self." Yet for many deeply caring people, it feels like their true self was never allowed to exist, sacrificed to keep others comfortable. By the end of this journey, you'll truly understand why your sensitivity feels like both a blessing and a heavy weight. You'll recognize the mental patterns that turned your natural caring into a way to cope with life. And most importantly, you'll discover Jung's way to what I call sacred self-care, learning healthy limits that change your deep caring from a forced habit into a thoughtful choice. This isn't about becoming less kind. It's about taking back your right to care for yourself with the same powerful energy you've always given to others. Jung understood something crucial that most people miss about how deep caring develops. What we see as strong empathy in adults often starts as what I call emotional radar in childhood, a survival skill that grows when a child's sense of safety depends on always watching and reacting to their caregivers' moods. Think about this familiar pattern. A child who learns to read their parents' feelings before a word is even spoken. The little one who becomes the family's emotional weatherman, always sensing problems before they appear. The child who learns that having their own needs creates tension, but guessing and meeting others' needs bring safety. Jung called this an early self-adjustment, where children develop very advanced mental skills, not from healthy growth, but out of necessity. Your nervous system became like a sensitive earthquake detector, tuned into every tiny emotional shake in your surroundings. This wasn't something you consciously learned. It was your brain rewiring itself to survive in an emotionally unpredictable world. You developed what Jung described as psychological antennae, an extraordinary ability to pick up on what others feel and need. But here's what Jung discovered that completely changes everything. This survival adaptation came with a big price. It meant pushing down what he called your healthy self-focus, the natural self-love and attention every child needs to build a strong sense of who they are. Jung wrote, "A healthy person can love themselves as much as they love others, but the person who would become deeply caring learned the opposite lesson. Care for others more than yourself, because your own needs are seen as risky." This creates what I call the caring paradox. The very sensitivity that connects you so deeply to others also becomes the wall that stops you from truly knowing yourself. You became an expert in everyone else's inner world while remaining a stranger to your own. Jung understood that this pattern, while helpful for survival in childhood, actually harms you in adulthood. The child who wasn't allowed to focus on their own needs grows into an adult who struggles to speak up for themselves, set boundaries, or even figure out what they truly need. Jung made a surprising discovery about what's hidden in the unconscious mind of people with these caring patterns. In the shadow, the parts of the mind that have been pushed away, he found not darkness, but what I call forbidden self-advocacy, the natural right to speak up for yourself that was considered unacceptable in childhood. Most deeply caring people feel a lot of guilt about their shadow because it holds everything they were taught was wrong. Anger, setting limits, saying no, putting themselves first, having needs, demanding respect. Jung called this shadow formation through moral learning. But here's Jung's revolutionary insight. These selfish urges aren't bad or wrong. They're the missing pieces needed to make a complete person. The deeply caring person who never learned healthy self-focus becomes what Jung called a wounded healer, someone who gives from an empty well instead of a full one. Jung observed that deeply caring people often secretly resent their own kindness. They give and give, but underneath, there's anger, there's exhaustion. A part of them wants to stop caring, to walk away, to choose themselves for once. This isn't because they're bad people. It's because Jung's balancing principle is at work. Your inner self is trying to create balance by pushing these ignored qualities into your awareness. Think about what Jung called enantiodromia, the tendency for things to turn into their opposite when taken too far. The person who gives without end eventually becomes resentful. The one who never says no eventually breaks. The deeply caring person who ignores their shadow becomes bitter. Jung understood that accepting your shadow isn't about becoming selfish. It's about taking back your right to exist as a complete human being. The shadow of the deeply caring person holds their sacred self-focus, the healthy inner strength that allows for truly genuine relationships. If this deep dive into your unique nature is resonating with you, and you're ready to embrace your true power, please hit the subscribe button. Join our community as we explore more insights that help you thrive as a truly conscious individual. Jung wrote, "True understanding doesn't come from imagining bright lights, but from facing your inner darkness." For deeply caring people, this darkness isn't about meanness. It's about the simple, profound act of believing they matter as much as everyone else. Jung identified a specific turning point that deeply caring people face in their development. He called it the Individuation challenge, the moment when your inner self demands that you become who you truly are, not just the person you learn to be to survive. This challenge often shows up as what I call empathic burnout, not just physical tiredness, but a deep soul exhaustion from living a life that wasn't true to yourself for years. Jung understood this as your inner self rebelling against constantly abandoning yourself. The signs Jung described are clear. You can't fake caring anymore. Your old reasons for acting don't work. Other people's problems feel heavy instead of inspiring. And you start disliking the very thing that once defined you, your willingness to help others. Jung saw this not as a failure, but as an inner breakthrough. Your authentic self is trying to emerge, but it requires letting go of the false self that was built around serving everyone else. This is where Jung's idea of the transcendent function becomes vital. This function is your mind's ability to bring together opposite ideas. In this case, your caring self and your self-caring self. It's not about choosing between being deeply caring and being self-focused. It's about bringing both together into what Jung called complete individuality. Jung observed that deeply caring people facing this challenge often feel like they're betraying everyone by changing. People might say, "You're not the same person anymore," or "You've become selfish." Jung understood this as society's natural resistance to individual growth. But here's what Jung discovered about this process. The people who truly care for you will support your journey to become whole. The ones who resisted were often benefiting from your tendency to put yourself last. Jung called this boundary anxiety, the fear that healthy limits will end relationships. Jung wrote, "The greatest gift in life is to become your true self." But for deeply caring people, this needs what I call courageous growth, the willingness to disappoint people who preferred you to be smaller. Jung understood that this challenge to become yourself is actually a spiritual emergency, your soul's urgent demand to be authentic. The deeply caring person who listens to this call doesn't become less compassionate. They become consciously caring instead of compulsively caring. Jung introduced a concept that many people misunderstand: sacred self-focus. This isn't about being overly self-centered. It's what Jung called the ethical duty to become yourself. The understanding that your first responsibility is to your own mental and spiritual development. Jung wrote, "Your path becomes clear when you look into your own heart. Those who look outside dream. Those who look inside awaken." For deeply caring people, looking inside often shows years of putting themselves last, which was mistakenly seen as a good quality. What I call conscious self-focus includes several key elements that Jung identified as necessary for good mental health. First, emotional independence, recognizing that you are not responsible for managing other people's feelings. Jung understood that trying to manage others' emotions actually stops their own mental growth. Second, boundary awareness, the ability to clearly sense where your feelings and responsibilities end and others begin. Jung called this ego boundary development, and he saw it as crucial for both individual well-being and real relationships. Third, validating your own needs, accepting that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. Jung observed that deeply caring people often treat their own needs as optional, while seeing others' needs as absolutely necessary. Jung discovered that deeply caring people who develop sacred self-focus actually become more helpful, not less. They give because they choose to, not because they have to, from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, from strength rather than weakness. This creates what Jung called differentiated love, the ability to care for others without losing yourself in the process. You can feel compassion without taking on their pain. You can offer support without taking over their responsibility. You can love without disappearing. Jung understood that the highest form of service comes from individuals who have done their own inner work. The person who has reclaimed their sacred self-focus offers the world their true self, instead of a performance designed to please others. Jung wrote, "The most frightening thing is to truly accept yourself." For deeply caring people, this means accepting the parts of themselves that want recognition, rest, fair exchange, and respect. All the things they were taught were wrong to want. Jung made a profound observation about what happens to relationships when deeply caring people start practicing sacred self-focus. He called it relationship reset, the process where connections either become deeper through true honesty or end because they were based on the caring person always putting themselves last. People who start setting boundaries often find something surprising. Many of their relationships were built on what Jung called projective identification. Others weren't connecting with them as unique individuals. They were connecting with them as roles: the caretaker, the listener, the problem solver. Jung observed that when deeply caring people stop playing these roles, some others experience what I call emotional withdrawal symptoms. They get angry, manipulative, or accusing because their emotional needs are no longer being automatically met. But Jung also documented something beautiful. The relationships that survive this change become what he called authentic encounters. Instead of one person always giving and one always receiving, both individuals meet as equals, each responsible for their own emotional well-being. Jung wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like two chemicals touching. If there is any reaction, both are changed. But true connection can only happen between whole, separate individuals, those who know where their own self ends and others begin." This is why Jung emphasized that deeply caring people must learn what I call wise relationship choices. Not everyone deserves access to your empathy. Not every person who asks for help is ready to receive it. Not every relationship that feels familiar is healthy. Jung understood that deeply caring people often mix up intense feelings with true closeness, neediness with love, and drama with real depth. Learning to see the difference requires developing what Jung called psychological discernment, the ability to see people as they truly are, rather than as you wish they were. The whole integrated caring person attracts different kinds of people than the person who always puts themselves last. They draw those who are also doing their own inner work, rather than those looking for someone to do it for them. Jung observed that this shift can feel lonely at first because the caring person is breaking old family patterns of unhealthy dependence. But it ultimately leads to what he called authentic belonging, relationships based on mutual respect rather than mutual need. Jung's wisdom here is clear. You cannot have truly honest relationships until you become a truly honest person. And becoming truly honest requires embracing your sacred self-focus. Jung's vision of mental wholeness includes what I call the integrated empath, someone who has reclaimed their sensitivity as a conscious choice rather than a forced habit. This person represents Jung's ideal of individuation fully achieved. The integrated empath has what Jung called conscious empathy, the ability to feel with others without losing themselves in the process. They've learned to use their sensitivity as a powerful tool, rather than being used by it. Jung identified several signs of mental integration that apply specifically to deeply caring people. First, emotional choice. The ability to decide when and how much to feel with others. Jung understood that healthy empathy has an on-off switch, controlled by your conscious will rather than an automatic reaction. Second, compassionate distance. The ability to care without carrying other people's burdens. Jung observed that the most helpful people keep what he called loving distance, close enough to help, far enough away to keep their own perspective. Third, two-way relationships, connections where caring flows both ways. Jung noted that integrated empaths naturally attract people who can also give, creating what he called mutual individuality. Jung wrote, "The greatest gift in life is to become your true self." The integrated empath has achieved this by learning that their truest self includes both their great capacity for compassion and their right to protect themselves. This integration creates what Jung called earned security, a deep inner stability that doesn't depend on others' approval or emotional state. The integrated empath can witness others' pain without taking it on, offer support without taking responsibility for fixing everything, and love without losing themselves. Jung understood that this level of integration benefits everyone. Integrated empaths show healthy boundaries, authentic relationships, and conscious compassion. They show others that it's possible to be sensitive without harming yourself. The journey from automatic empathy to conscious empathy is what Jung called the hero's journey of the soul. It requires facing your hidden parts, bringing together your opposite qualities, and choosing wholeness over always trying to please others. Jung's final insight about deeply caring people is this: your sensitivity is indeed a superpower, but only when it comes from strength rather than survival, from choice rather than being forced, from wholeness rather than feeling wounded. The deeply caring person who is never allowed to put themselves first is finally free to choose. And that choice, to love yourself as much as you love others, is the most generous gift you can give to a world that desperately needs whole, aware, and integrated people. Thanks for watching. If you're ready to fully embrace your psychological rarity and stop apologizing for traits that make you extraordinary, comment below. I am evolutionary consciousness in human form. Share this with someone who needs to remember their own psychological rarity. Subscribe, because we're just beginning to explore the depths of what makes you extraordinary. Remember, you're not too much, the world is too little, and Jung knew that people like you are the ones who change that. Thank you for watching. See you in the next level of understanding.